Welcome to Event Experience by Bizzabo, the podcast where we bring the best and brightest event experience leaders together to share stories, tips, and lessons learned creating some of the world's biggest events. I'm Rachel Moore, your podcast host. We're all here for the profits most of the time, right? Today, go with me into the realm of nonprofit and fundraising experiences with Ron Rausch, owner of Wired Production Group and the ARC Collaborative. Ron shares insights from over 25 years in event production focused on storytelling, innovative engagement, and the future of event technology, especially in nonprofit and corporate sectors. The story is the thing for everyone's event experience. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Event Experience by Bizzabo. Today, our guest is a live event production leader and the driving force behind Wired Production Group, a full-service production company helping organizations deliver seamless, high-impact events. We all love those. That's our bread and butter. He also owns the ARC Collaborative, serving academic institutions, healthcare organizations, and nonprofits as they turn mission into measurable impact. So we're going to talk more about that today as well. With decades of hands-on experience in audio, video, lighting, direction, our guest specializes in transforming complex event visions into polished, memorable audience experiences for Fortune 500 companies, music festivals, and more across the globe. And he's made time to be with us today. I'm really excited to welcome Ron Rausch to the episode. Thanks for joining us, Ron.
Thanks, Rachel. Glad to be here. That's quite a bio there. Holy cow.
Hey, you know what? You put it out there and I go dig it up and then I bring it into the fore. But as awesome and comprehensive as that bio was, I know we are just scratching the surface. And so I do what I always like to do with our guests. I'm going to toss it back to you to give you an opportunity. Ron, tell us a little bit more about yourself, what your day looks like and things. Just give us all the 411, please.
Yeah. So Wired Production Group, I've had that company for 25 years now. So I started that. It was small little company. I was doing video work and then it just kind of exploded into content creation. Then we got into doing live events. Then we got into doing live entertainment concerts. So we have different divisions that do that. And then as recently as a couple years ago, based on a spinoff of a client of ours, it was a long-term client that we had, was getting absorbed, and that was the birth of the ARC Collaborative, which was a client of ours. So we did all of the nonprofit fundraising production side of the things. Now we have the content creation, design, storytelling aspects of that business as well under one roof. So busy place, lots going on. You know, I got a large family. I got 7 kiddos that are also keeping us hopping all over the globe. 3 of them are in college or out of college, and another one going to college, and still 3 at home. So yeah, it's never a dull moment here. So,
well, it's not like you're busy or anything.
No, right? Exactly.
This makes it even more impressive. I'm so glad we get some time with you today to talk about all this. But yeah, I think all event planners, regardless of family, personal and professional situation, super busy. Well, we do want to get to know you a little bit more before we dive into some more of the kind of the professional and event planning and all that stuff questions. My first question for you, I ask all of our guests. What are your go-to on-the-ground event day shoes? Those days when it's going to be 10 to 14 hours on the ground.
Oh my God, every day is 10 to 14 hours, it feels like. It depends. If I'm working in the production side of it, a lot of times we're backstage dealing with, tripping over cables and stuff all over the place. So I've got some nice steel toe Skechers that I've had that work pretty well, that are pretty comfortable for long days. And it depends. Sometimes, you got to dress to the nines, right? So I've got some nice sorrel boots that are pretty comfortable. I use Hoka's are great. They're the best tennis shoe out. We should do an ad for them. But yeah, those are really comfortable too. So yeah, it's a variety because we're in different places, right? And sometimes you got to look the part and feel the part. And sometimes you can be like, I'm hitting backstage. I can wear whatever.
That's
be
right.
Comfy. So.
I've often joked, gosh, with as many people who have answered Hoka on this question.
You should have an ad in the corner, a little bug in the corner. So sponsored by Hoka.
Could be brought to us by Hoka.
Could we get some free shoes for everybody on this these shows, right?
I'm just saying. I mean, obviously, a lot of event planners out there.
Right.
Target audience, rich market.
No doubt.
Is there anything that you're listening to, watching, or reading these days that you simply cannot put down? And it doesn't have to be events or work related.
I listen to a lot of stuff. I don't read much. I read a lot of, feels like RFPs a lot, which those are a pain in the butt, but I get absorbed in those a lot. Let's see. NPR, I'm a big fan of NPR. I love
Nice.
Jon Stewart. I love Smartless. Those are all my favorite, podcasts for those
Yeah.
guys. NPR, I get absorbed and sit in my driveway half the time at night listening to finish a story. History docs. I don't know if it's just because we're coming up on the 250 years, but I've been really U.S. history stuff has been fascinating. And, the world's a crazy place now. And I haven't lived through a lot of that crazy times in the past. So looking at that, it gives me a little hope that we can come out on the other side of this better and stronger like we have in the
Yeah.
past. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's lots of variety.
I love that. It's so funny that you mentioned that too. I was just listening to my daily or my weekly Jon Stewart
Love that
video
guy.
this morning. I know. And then I actually too, it was funny. I don't remember where I was going. I think I popped on. And of course, I love how they do this. They put the first episode on YouTube and then you've got to pay for the rest of it, but which
Yeah.
makes sense, of course. But anyone marketing out there
Welcome
knows
to
that.
America. Monetize everything.
That's right. But the American Revolution, and
Yeah.
that's been really fascinating too. So I'm probably going to pony up for the rest of that because it was really interesting. So I love that
It's
we're both kind of
crazy.
dabbling into
It's
that.
just, and you see just how interesting and tumultuous our history has been. And
Yeah.
just like, and these guys were leading oh my gosh, they were not great people or great leaders necessarily.
Yep. Imperfect.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us are, right?
It's pretty interesting to like look at all that
Yeah.
stuff. Well, again, if anyone else is identifying, holler out on social on these episodes and we'll all commiserate about it.
Yeah.
Also, so is there a particular social post, maybe a piece of media or a hot take even about events that you might have found interesting lately?
I get a lot of ideas from social media. I like to see what other people are doing in production and how we could maybe take a nugget of this or a nugget of that. How do we weave that into how we deliver a message or tell a story?
Yeah.
I struggle a little bit. There's so much AI generated content now. You're like, all right, the dogs are not really lighting fireworks and the cats aren't talking and dancing. And it's like, but now that's coming into like, those are funny, right? But now it's coming into our world of like, is that a real event and a real production or is
Right.
that? So I take it all kind of with a grain of salt, but it's a good idea generator for us, I think. And always looking at new technology and seeing the new tech and being heavy in the tech in one side of our business is, how do we take that and how do we use that in delivering story and messaging and how do we use that to engage people?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've done so many shows over the last 30 years that are one-way delivery, that are long days and long speed. How do we make this so that it's two-way, that it's more interactive, that it's more engaging? So coming up with those ideas and seeing some of that on social media. I just had one the other day that we pitched to a client. They loved the idea. Was I saw these musicians kind of floating in front of this backdrop, right?
Ooh.
And so at a lot of our fundraising events, you might have a cocktail reception pre or post, right? And a lot of times on campuses, we use the arts that they have on campus, right? So they might have musicians. And so I saw this way, traditionally we have like a quartet playing, pre-reception music. So now we've saw this visual of like they're floating in space. And so we pitched that concept. I love it. Now we've got, some folks in the shop back there going, how scratching their head, was that real? And how are we going to do that? And so they're coming up with ideas, but that, that's the kind of stuff that I kind of gravitate towards in the social media stuff.
I love that. Well, I mean, gosh, you obviously are finding those ideas. And I know so many of our listeners and our audience do that as well. I mean, sometimes that inspiration comes from the feeds and also maybe AI slop, but hopefully mostly it's authentic stuff, right? And I love this. This kind of segues us into what we want to talk to you about today. Because first of all, you're the type of guest I love to bring on to our audience because if we're telling the truth here, we're often talking about the world of for-profit event planning.
Yeah.
We just are. I mean, Bizzabo is a for-profit company. It just stands to reason. But nonprofit and fundraising groups are just as deserving, if not more so, to get some airtime when it comes to creating experiences that matter. So I'd love to learn, like, how did you first get into working with nonprofits and fundraising organizations from, the event planning capacity, or even if it was before that?
Yeah. So 25, 26 years ago, we had a client that was doing change management for corporations for the profit industry of their business. And they were talking to, voices of customers and these kinds of things. That resonated in the nonprofit world. And so they had some connections there. And next thing you know, we're designing training that has a lot of voices from donors, from recipients, and telling those stories. And so Spinning off of that then comes, well, we have this large event where we want to bring in a bunch of donors. We're going to have a campaign launch, and we want to take that same storytelling and message that we used in our training to train our foundation folks on how to make those engagements, how donors think, how they perceive things, how do you get that message across. And so that launched us into doing these campaign launches. And so hundreds of shows, 20 some years later, just 2 years ago, that company was getting absorbed by another training company much larger. And of course, as acquisitions often happen, we don't need the entertainment side of it. We want to focus on the core business of what we do of training. And so that was spun off. Yeah. And having that long-term relationship with those folks, we brought them in-house. President of the company came with that, started as our president to run that business. And so here we are 2 years in its infancy stage as our collaborative, but we've been doing these shows for, 20 some years. So
that's amazing. I love that. Gosh, that's a good, happy outcome. Sometimes those acquisitions can be hit or miss, mixed bag.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring it on.
It was great. And being that vendor partner that I've been involved in a lot of those training videos over the years and understanding that philosophy and understanding that storytelling, really, that with us having the production element side of it was just a really good marriage to bring them in, but keep them separate so they can go do and have that expertise in that field. So.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk a little bit more too about ARC Collaborative, because it's like, can you describe the mission for it? Because I think that'd be really interesting for our audience to hear.
Yeah, it's really making the donor connections to the institution and what motivates them. How do we connect with them? And how do we do that in a storytelling way? Yeah. And to move them to action, right? At the end of the day, we know that, philanthropy is important, and that supports and fosters the growth and innovation that we have in colleges, universities, and the healthcare industry. And so it's really interesting to find out the connections that people make back to their institutions, whether that's through an experience they had with them, whether it's a healthcare industry where someone in your family was touched by that and you support that because of the service and care that you were provided, or it's something along the lines of like, I met my spouse there and I have this nostalgic feeling of the history and where it got me to today, or it helped me get successful. I launched my business because of something I learned and I want to pass that along. Or I have a passion towards something, or I want to help the next generation be as successful as I was. And so it's finding those connections, weaving those stories together, and having that representation in our events so that they can make that connection. I can either see myself as that donor. I was that student who got scholarships, and it's important for me to give scholarships because I wouldn't be where I am today without that help. And so I can kind of pass that along, right? It's that move it forward kind of mentality. And so I think I enjoy that because it's, puppies and kids and dogs and stories. And it's how do we take them on a journey where we make them laugh, we make them cry, we motivate them to action, all of those things. And I think that's kind of what's missing in the corporate world. We don't get that culture, that community, that feeling. It's, 8 hours of eye charts and financials and goal setting and versus, what's the end customer think? How do we bring that stories?
Yeah, you're actually laying up my next question for you perfectly. I love the way this, kind of just organically winds up in the place that I want to go next with you, because I know with both Wired Production Group and the ARC Collaborative, as you just mentioned, you focused on storytelling, on creating that connection. And I think you're talking about something that every single event planner who listens to this podcast and is out there doing their day-to-day, they're just like, yes, if I can connect with our audience through what I do with this experience or event, I've done my job. And that's what we're meant to do. Now, it might be an assumption any of us might make that it might be easier for nonprofits and fundraising to make that connection through storytelling. Are we wrong to assume that? And if we are, why are we wrong? But also, what can we learn from that kind of connection and storytelling?
I think there's a transition happening in that, though. I think traditionally, even in the because I've had experience in both and I've done events in both.
Yeah.
Traditional events even in the nonprofit world. Or, it's the rubber chicken dinner. We've got to hear from the president for a half hour. We got to hear from the provost. We got to hear from the foundation leadership. Maybe the biggest donor we have, is making a substantial gift. And there's all of the, I don't want to say the political, but there's all of the, these are all the people that have to be part of it, right? And that balloons into this 2-3 hour extravaganza, right?
Yeah.
We see that in the corporate world too, right? We see that we have to have the president speak. All the leadership has to come out and give their messages, and the finance and the marketing and sales and all of the different pieces, right? And I think what we need to do is we've been trying to transition that into, we're mining for gold. And so we need the message to be poignant and quick and clear, and don't make the president carry all the water. They're important. They're an important key message. They're an important leader. They're important in setting the mission and the drive and all of the things. What can we do with other folks to help carry that water, to help deliver that same message, to make that connection? Because I might not be able to relate as an employee, as a participant in an event, to the top leadership. It's so far, right? That's a big mountain for me. I can't get up there. I can't relate to them. But I can relate to this person here, and I can emulate that or be like them. So how do we take that into short messages and stories? I think too that, most of our events, when it comes to the core meat of a show, it's very theatrical. It's very much a journey of a lot of involving your sensories, whether you're engaged in part of it, whether things happen in the audience, whether things happen on stage, whether it's a music entertainment, or it's a spoken word piece, or it's a demonstration by someone, weaved into speeches and multimedia. Everything is bits of like 3 to 5 minute bits, but they're gold. You've mined for that. You've gotten that message. So it's like a 30-second or 15-second, now it's 15-second ads on our $8, right? They can get them, every brand can get their message across to you in 15, 20 seconds. So how do we do that to keep, because listen, everybody's attention span is, see it, swipe, move, right? And so fast forward, our generation, my generation is going to be like gone out of the workforce, and how do we communicate with the next generation? Right? And they're going to want to be entertained. They're going to want to feel like a sense of culture, a sense of belonging, a sense of storytelling. So doing that and having that happen in a corporate world is, I think, the challenge. I've seen some success with that when we hear voices of customers. When we hear, I work for an avionics company that, they've had a pilot come in that used their ejection seat, and they had the folks that make the ejection seat for the fighter planes in there. And it's like, okay, I saved that guy's life. I made a difference, right? And so when you can make that connection, it's like, what's that old story of like the ask the janitor at NASA, what do you do? And I help put people on the moon, right? And he's sweeping the floors. And so that's the challenge, I think, in the corporate world, is how do you make that connection? So that I feel like I make a difference, that I belong, that I have a sense of being, a sense of culture.
I love that you connect, saying, of course, you've got to do all the things. And every single event planner knows this. You've got the hierarchy, the people, stakeholders, different titles, and people like, oh yeah, we have to include them, include this. But they're all really realizing that, yes, but not everybody is that person. And how do I broaden our reach really, and also really make that person who doesn't exactly relate with that stakeholder or with that C-level or with that president, but how do I make the person that I can influence into that meaningful connection? How do I do that? I'd love to ask you about any example event experiences that you helped out with, or, executed with your team this year. Can you share with us any of those things that you worked on, just to give us some more insights? We love your ideas that you're giving us. We'll be right back with more event experience after the break. Ever wished your event badge did more than just display your name? Whether you're an event organizer, exhibitor, or attendee, Bizibo's Click Smart Badge transforms the event experience. From interactive networking to real-time attendee insights and lead capture, the Smart Badge is the ultimate game changer. Visit bizibo.com/click. That's bizzabo.com/KLIK to learn more about the next generation of wearable event technology. Bizibo, your partner for building conferences that captivate. We're back with Ron Rausch for some real-life examples of innovative storytelling in events this year.
Well, there's one of the big things we're doing now with a lot of the college and university campaign launches. We're working on like 4 of them currently. We're on the road with one, a Wheaton College out of Wheaton, Illinois.
Yeah.
And we're doing a roadshow tour with them where we're hitting 6 cities. And so it's kind of a unique situation. They did a campaign launch, and then traditionally, college and universities will do a silent phase of maybe 5 years of raising money. And then they do a public launch, and then that goes for maybe 3 to 5 years, and then they reach their goal. And then they have a campaign close. Well, that journey in between is also, we've got to keep that momentum going, right? It's not just the 45-minute, the one evening where we bring in our biggest and brightest and best donors and have this big event and go, okay, check the box. Yeah. Hopefully we hit the number at the end. There's a lot of activity that needs to continue on. And so we're working with Wheaton College, and they are on the road going. We've gone all over the United States, and they have an event where we've built these experiential centers. And so we have folks from the university that are there talking about raising money for the new library expansion. And we've built this virtual hall that you walk into, and it's the renderings of the old and the new and overlapping and telling the story and the need and so forth. And there's, one's on athletics and one's on scholarships and so forth. And there's a brief message, and then they're bringing in, it's a Christian college, so they're bringing in a Christian national act, and we have experience with that. And so part of the evening culminates with an entertainment or a concert for, an hour, 90 minutes. And so that's been fun and challenging, and we take all of these ideas and set pieces and move them around the country and set them up in these different venues. And we're in DC, close to the Smithsonian, and we've been in, at the Mile High Stadium in Denver where the Broncos play, your backyard. We're at Skirball in LA, and so that's been fun to bounce around on that. University of Memphis, I mentioned a little bit, the floating musicians. That's for University of Memphis. We're doing a thing in their theater, which is going to be fun. That's ironic because we're taking a twist on how we tell the story there of utilizing, the president has a podcast, and it's pretty famous on campus type podcast. Yeah. And so we're actually building a set piece and doing a mock podcast. That's how we'll do some of our conversations on stage. So it's getting out of the norm of presentation speech. It's like we have the presence of the right people in the right places, but it's a different way to deliver the message and tell the story. So that's fun. University of Arizona, I just got back from Tucson a couple of days ago. We have a big campaign close for them. We did the launch for them in 22. We're doing the close here this fall. They coincide that around homecoming. So it's a lunch and gala event with, again, the experiential centers that we then move out to an outdoor mall area that's part of their weekend tailgate. So not only exposure with the donors, but then talk about what the campaign has done and have that opened up to the community, the public, the students, the faculty and staff that can also experience that. Yeah. Along with, some tailgate events and messaging and so forth. So lots of fun stuff, but you always got to think outside the box. Mm-hmm. How do we do it differently? What technologies make sense? Not just use the tech to use the tech, but how do we use it to tell the story, right? Yeah.
Gosh, as you say, think outside the box, my immediate thought is like, well, literal boxes, as in booths at trade shows, is what a lot of our event planners, whip up and like work in all the time. But yeah, I know they're always trying to think of that too. We highlight a lot of those things on this show, including what you just shared, where it's like, how do you like just flip the script a little bit, or just add some new aspect of it that is unexpected, or crosses that boundary between what people imagine in their brain, like. When we're on this podcast right now, when we're talking and stuff, but when you can actually put that like studio feel on a stage and be like, oh, I'm in a podcast, but I'm also on this in this stage.
The on-air sign will come on, and cool. You'll set the stage, and it just kind of puts you in that environment. But it's just the thinking about it, and I think that's the art of this, is when we work with our writers and our producers, when they do the pre-interviews of the folks that are going to be, the cast of characters, as we put them. What is unique about them? What can we use to deliver their message in a unique way? Whether they're a good storyteller, whether they have a podcast, whether they do a weekly session with their students every week or faculty. What are the bells and whistles that we can take that piece and say, oh, you actually are a scholarship winner too. We could weave in your story of how you got to where you are because you're a first generation, or whatever that connection is. Right. Right. And so it's mining for that gold. And I think that comes from being in the video industry for a long time
Yeah.
You capture hours and hours of footage and you got to finish it down to a 2 or 3 minute video. And, how do you do that? Because it's all so good.
Yeah.
But it's just, you just keep chipping away and chipping away to go, hot, tighten it up, tighten it up.
Yeah. Okay, two analogies there. One, when we talk about chipping away, I don't remember which sculptor or artist it was where they're like, they see the marble and it's just a big block of marble, but they already see inside of it what the statue is going to be. And their job is to remove everything that isn't the statue.
Get everything out of the way so I can see the statue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone is listening to this is yelling and I know who that is. And I'm sorry, I know I don't know who that artist was. But I remember too, I didn't watch it, but it was I think it was Ryan Reynolds and his partner bought a football club, and was it Wrexham or whatever?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember, so I did get to see him at an event where he was talking about the thing you're talking about, where it's like stories, and telling the story is always the thing. And that's how you come up with these ideas that are compelling and memorable and, just make you kind of go, stop and listen. And he mentioned like there was I think they were talking to the staff there or something at the football club and, well, we don't really have any cool stories here. Meanwhile, then somebody just comes up and says, hey, and they start talking about like, yeah, our caretaker who's been here since he was a boy and struggled through all this stuff. He's going through this thing over here. Should we get something together for him? Yeah, let's do that. And Ryan Reynolds is going, I'm sorry, there's a story right there. Who is this guy? I got to meet this guy. And so,
right.
But you're so right. Cause yeah, just taking that time to suss out what is the unique thing here. There is a story embedded everywhere and everything. Even like if we're talking about B2B, for profit, marketing and stuff, there is a story in there. And to try to go dig it out and just be thoughtful and take that time to figure out what that story is and then how to use it to connect to people. Sounds like that's your superpower, which is awesome.
It is. And I think it's a challenge in the corporate world. It just is. The time frames are tight. Generally, you're working with multiple people. It comes down to managing logistics more than anything, right? Because you got such a heavy lift and a short leash and putting that all together that I feel like the content is always, even when we get content, it's like, it's the day before we're finally getting the content from whoever's going to be on stage or minutes before they go on stage. We just finished it. It's like everything is so last minute that to make that leap to what we're doing, which is a fully, tightly scripted event, it seems like an impossible lift.
Yeah.
However, I do think there are opportunities to inject small moments of that to bring people along the way. You can't necessarily take, I think, a corporation and ask them to do this kind of a lift. Very few will do that. I think there are some that probably do it and do it very well, and they're already out there and they're successful. But I think the traditional events that we have done in the corporate world, that's a heavy lift. But can we take those stories and those moments and start bringing them a little bit at a time?
Yeah.
Hey, just do this one piece. See what you get out of that.
Yeah.
Wow, that resonated the most out of the whole week was that story with so-and-so, or when we had all the customers in, or we did the team building event and gave back to the military that we support, or whatever those things are those the moments? And then how do we do more of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about thinking outside the box. I love that you've mentioned use tech. Tech is out there and we absolutely can use it to just change up and deliver these experiences a little differently, so it is that out of the box experience. So my question for you is, where do you see the future of your companies and their experiences that you create going? And I think whatever you share is going to pop off some light bulbs for people too. But yeah, where do you think we're going to end up here?
AI is a very powerful tool and a very scary tool at the same time. And I think there are some really cool things you do with it. I think for me, it's more engaging events and how do we get everybody in the room to participate in something, whatever that immersive kind of feel is. And you see that in certain spaces. You go to the Sphere or something, it's like, wow, I'm totally engaged. How do we see more of that kind of thing in events? I think AI is going to be a big tool. We use it a lot already. Staffing and expenses and budgeting and all of those things get tighter and tighter every year. It's a great way to offset some of those costs with efficiencies. So, I mean, I just caution people, it's a tool, not the solution.
Exactly.
And it's not always right, and it won't always be right. But there's also, I think there's a cautionary tale of human connection is still very important. And we have to make sure we don't lose that. And I think that's the success in all those things, in the storytelling. Technology changes every week. It's really hard to see where this is going to go. I mean, it used to be easy to put a 3 to 5 year plan together. Now it's like, I got a 6-month plan, and then 5 months in, it's like, oh my God, we saw something really cool, or we go that way. I mean, that's
Yes.
the beauty of being small, is you're agile and you go, oh, we were going to go left, but that looks really cool. Shiny object. So that's probably the challenge, is that tech is moving so fast, and the world of professional and consumer is just like smashing together in all this technology, right? And so how do we use that to our advantage to still tell great stories, engage people, make those human connections, because that's what really matters. That's why people come to events. And I think people can lose sight of that with just paying attention to the almighty dollar and profitability, and you need people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I have the final, easiest question of the
Oh my
entire
God.
podcast. Now that I gave you the hardest one, but where can our listeners find and follow you and your companies online?
Oh my God. So wiredproductiongroup.com is where we live. And then theartcollaborative.com are the two websites. And of course, there's links to all of our social media platforms and all the places to kind of follow us along. We're out there showing off our shows and events all the time. So I'd love to engage with anybody who wants to just brainstorm or shoot the breeze or catch up. It's great to just collaborate with people. So.
Ron's Skill Up advice is also great advice about just being a human being.
I guess the thing that has always made me successful is take care of the people that are around you. The one piece of advice is value your team. I mean, it's vitally important to take care of people, and it's important to take care of your team. It's important to do the extra thing for a client. It may be outside the box, but if you make them look good, you're going to get return business and things are going to work out fine. I've often just got up and do the right thing every day, take care of people, and good things will happen to you. I think if you do those two things, I think it's just integrity. It's if you care about the people you work with and you care about the projects, success will come.
Thanks again to Ron Rausch for joining us on Event Experience. And thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love to hear it. Connect with us on social and subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Also, don't forget to share the show with your colleagues and friends. You can find full transcripts and key takeaways of every episode on visibo.com/podcast. On behalf of the team, thank you. We'll gather again soon for a new episode of Event Experience.